Namaskar, dear students. Today, the poem Childhood is under discussion. The poem is written by Marcus Nathan. The poet in this poem thinks over his lost childhood. He thinks that innocence is an important trait that is found in a child, and he has lost that innocence. The poet wonders when he lost this childhood. He thinks that maybe it was the time when he became rational, when he realized the hypocrisy of the people around him, or when he developed his own mind to produce his own thoughts. And finally the poet realizes that he has lost it, and it can be traced in the innocent face of an infant. So the poem begins here with the first stanza. When did my childhood go? Was it the day I ceased to be 11? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography, and therefore could not be? Was that the day? The poet wonders when he lost his childhood. When he lost his childhood. Here, when did my childhood go, means the poet could not notice when his childhood left him. So here he is talking about that he has lost his childhood, and he wonders at this loss. He doesn't know the time of it. Was it the day I ceased to be 11? And now he is answering in a guessed manner to his question, was it the day I ceased to be 11? The poet is saying that perhaps it was the time when he became 11-year-old. Perhaps it was the time he became 11-year-old. Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven? Or he lost his childhood when he realized that hell and heaven are not real places. Means these two places don't exist in the world. If they had existed, they could have been found in geography textbook, as the geography textbooks the poet has read does not mention anything about these two places. Means their locations are not there in the atlas given in geography textbook, and therefore the poet comes to the conclusion that these two places don't exist in the world. Was that the day? Means he is again emphasizing that was that the time I had lost my childhood. In childhood, the poet was taught that there are two places, hell and heaven. Those who do good deeds go to heaven, and those who do bad deeds, they go to hell. But when he becomes mature and does not find these two places in his textbooks, he comes to the conclusion that these two places are not there. Cease to come to an end when he has completed his 11 years. Then he is guessing that was it the if this was the time he had lost his childhood. Now move to the next stanza. When did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? The poet is again repeating his question when he lost his childhood. And in second line of the stanza again giving a guessed answer to that. Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? Means was it the time the poet realized about the behavior of the adults? What they seemed to be, they were not such people. Means they were hypocrite people. They were hypocrite people. These people talked of love and preached of love to the child. But when time comes to act themselves, they do not behave. Act, you can take here its meaning as they do not behave so lovingly. They preach, means they sermonize. They sermonize that the child should be caring, loving. The child should be caring, loving. But they themselves are argumentative, violent, and discourteous. Was that the day? The poet again repeats that. What was it the time? If it was the time that he lost his childhood, the time here refers to that time when the poet had recognized that the adults were hypocrite people. So he had taken a step towards his adulthood. Now move to the next stanza. When did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine, to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people, but my own and mine alone? Was that the day? The poet again asks the same question, but this time he is again giving different options for it. The poet asks us when he lost his childhood and giving his guessed answer to it. Was it the time? Means if it was the time he found his mind was really him. His mind was really his, not of anyone else, and he could use it whichever way he chooses, producing thoughts that were not those of other people. He could produce thoughts which were not borrowed from other people, not taken from other people, but his own and his alone. Was that the day? Means The poet be- the poet gained individuality. In the process of growing up, the poet gained individuality, and he set himself free from the preconceived opinions of others. His own individual opinions and experiences shape his thoughts now, and he realized that this might have been the time when he lost his childhood innocence completely. Now move to the next stanza. Where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. Here, the poet had changed his question. Instead of asking the time he lost his childhood, he is asking the place his childhood has gone and hidden itself. So he is telling us that where did my childhood go? Where his childhood went, he doesn't know about it. He doesn't know about it. He wonders where it has gone. It went to some forgotten place. Again, he is giving guessed answer to it. It went to some forgotten place. He is reflecting that maybe it has gone to an unremembered place. Forgotten place means a place that is not known to him. An unremembered place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. And in last two lines, the poet has become very philosophical and giving reason for it. The poet also says that childhood can be found in the innocent face of an infant, of a child who does not have any pretensions and rationality and who trusts others unconditionally. Means the poet has summed up his poem by saying that why he is saying that this childhood can be found in an infant face. The place of childhood is where? In an infant face, because an infant carries an innocent face. He is unaware of the hypocrisy of people. He is unaware of the rationality. He is unaware of the individuality. Means a small child is full of innocence, and there one can find one's own childhood. That's all I know. He has realized that. He is giving a conclusion on the basis of his experiences that childhood means innocence, and the innocence can be found only in an infant face. So if one has to see childhood, one should seek or find a child, an infant. Only that child carries childhood, innocence. Rest of the people aren't. And when one drops innocence, one gets mature. One steps towards maturity, adulthood. The poet is also suggesting it. As far as poetic devices are concerned, we can see here alliteration that we find in hell and heaven. The hair sound has been repeated here. That, the, here, and we can find here in the next stanza, my mind. My mind, and whichever way. So all these are examples of alliteration, and we have also used here antithesis. Antithesis we have used in the first stanza of it, hell and heaven. This figure of speech refers to the placement of opposing or contrasting ideas together. So hell and heaven are two totally different things, and they have been used here together. So this emphasizes the difference between the two ideas and adds interest to writing. It can be seen in the use of words hell and heaven. Next is enjambment. Enjambment. This figure of speech refers to the practice of running lines of poetry from one to the next without using any kind of punctuation. To indicate a stop. And where we find it? So here we find question mark, comma, 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 exclamatory mark, question mark. Yes, this line was at the time I realized that adults were not all they seem to be. Here we find a pause, comma. So here in this second line of the second stanza, we find the example of enjambment. So this figure of speech has been used here. One more figure of speech has been used here, to use whichever way I choose. Here subject verb, and here to use here verb and then subject. So here the common order of subject verb has been changed. So we find here inversion, the use of inversion figure of speech. So we have covered almost all devices in this poem. So you have to prepare this poem as a whole.